Hello, welcome to this week's podcast for Iconic Wealth for Women. One of the things that I really love about this podcast is inspiring women that no matter where you are on your wealth journey, things can change quite rapidly if you get the right education, support, and you take action. And today's guest, Stephanie Taylor, is a definite accolade to this belief. She didn't start her wealth building journey until the age of 45, yet in 6 years with property, she is now a property investor with a multi-million pound portfolio, which includes things like flats, HMOs, and commercial property. We're going to get into some of that shortly. She's the co-founder of the award-winning rent-to-rent business, HMO Heaven. She's a co-founder of Rent-to-Rent Success, which has inspired thousands of non-traditional investors to get started in property. She's also the author of the best-selling book, Rent-to-Rent Success, and the host of the top 1.5% podcast, Rent-to-Rent Success. Seeing the theme here, aren't you? Winner of the Inspirational Women Person of the Year 2021. And she's featured everywhere on things like BBC, Telegraph, Business Insider, and much more. So her mission is really very similar to mine. It's to impact others around the world, literally creating and growing their wealth. So welcome, Stephanie. We've heard what you've achieved now, and I'm so excited to have you here. It's a pleasure. So thank you for joining me on the Iconic Wealth for Women podcast. And before we go and get into what you've done now, and obviously I've introduced you that way to share how quickly you can change what you do. But first, let's go back to kind of where you got started a little bit. What was your turning point? How did you take control of your long-term wealth?
Yeah, Kylie, it's great to be here. We were just saying before the camera started rolling, I love that you're doing this Iconic Wealth for Women, because I think that a lot of the times we as women don't identify ourselves maybe with that word. Or in my case, I was just working and I would have felt grateful if I bought my own house and left it at that. I had a bit of savings. I really thought stocks and shares was another world for other people. And when I was younger, it was another world. You actually needed to have a significant amount to invest. You needed to have the services of a broker to be able to invest. And what's happened in the last few years is that anyone can invest, and it's a simple process. But I started off, my formative years, I was a teenage mom, very tight income, and self-esteem also kind of low. And so that was my starting point. And from there, just getting to what many people would regard as just the normal, having a professional job, I did university part-time while Alex was little. And then when he went to school, I went full-time to university and graduated and got several degrees because it worked. It was flexible when Alex was at school. And then after that, I got on the work, and I thought it would be amazing, and I'd have this fabulous corporate job and we would be so comfortable. But of course, then it's longer hours and the money wasn't that great just for me, just starting off. And I eventually came to, a few years ago, when I was working in financial services, did have a decent level of income by then and felt quite settled.
Brilliant. That's fantastic. So what was kind of the reason? So obviously you had a very solid, secure sort of corporate space.
Yeah.
And I know my journey was very similar in the corporate space. And it was like giving that up. Like, what made you decide to go, okay, I'm in this kind of safe corporate space. I've built myself, like you said, a good solid security. I think that's what people talk about, security in corporate, which I don't believe anymore. But you've done all that hard work to get a good career. You've got yourself in that situation. What on earth possessed you to now go down the route of property like you have done now? What was the reason behind it?
Well, when I look back on it, I think I'm so grateful that she had that bravery, because there was nothing really to support it. So I'd always been I hadn't really even thought, oh, I could have a business. I could invest in property. I could invest in stocks and shares. I kind of knew in my logical brain, yes, this is open to all people, even you. But in my deep inside me, that wasn't how I identified. And so what happened was, I was getting ready for work. I lived in Bristol, had a lovely flat on the harbour side, and my mum called me one morning while I was getting ready for work, and I she wasn't very well, so I was a bit worried about her, but I was also worried about getting to work on time. I was doing a presentation that day, which I was worried about, and I didn't really give her my full attention on this call. And it ended up one of those, where they start saying, "Oh, sorry to bother you. Oh, I know you're busy," and things like this. And
Mm.
so the call ended. And then in the afternoon, I was sitting at my desk, I overlooked the harbour, and I was just congratulating myself, basically thinking, "See you, Steph, that presentation went so well. See when your manager said this or whatever. Aren't you amazing? You needn't have worried. You can calm down now. You can breathe again." And then in the middle of all these thoughts that are coming up self-congratulatory, I thought, "Oh, but what about mom?" And then it's like it hits you like it's a physical punch in the belly. And I was just like, oh gosh, yeah. I can just imagine her just waking up and needing to reach out to somebody and just needing someone just to say, "It's okay, mom. I love you. Everything's going to be all right." And she's just waking up on her own, not feeling good, maybe a bit scared. And I could see in that moment I wasn't there for her. And it kind of had that realization, the bank will be absolutely fine without me, but my mum won't. And also, who do I want to be? What woman do I want to be? Do I want to be the woman who's there with her family, or do I want to be the woman who worked an extra day at Lloyd's Bank? Not to say you shouldn't put in your best for your work, but as I looked towards my future, I thought, how could I be more flexible and not have to be here at work?
Oh, I really love that, Steph. You give me goosebumps. I've just got goosebumps with that. But I think, that touches me in two major ways as well. And I think that you sort of mentioned it right at the beginning as well is, what does wealth really mean to us? So we talk about, obviously, I love talking about money. People hate it, but I love it because I want to empower women to talk about money, own it. We were talking about the other day, someone approached me about doing an article around what does it mean in finance jargon, around the jargon in finance for women. And I said, no, we don't need to dumb it down. We don't need to cut the jargon. We need women to be empowered to understand it. And so, one of the things we talk about is money and wealth, but what is really wealth? And for me, you've just touched on it beautifully there. We don't talk about wealth for the sake of money. We talk about wealth for time, to be with our family, to give back, to do things with. So, that is just truly inspiring. So, so what did you do? Did you ring mum and go, "Hey, mum, guess what?" Like, did you make a split decision, or did you just go, "Do you know what? I need to think about this," or, "Oh, I've lost your camera then."
Oh,
Lost you on camera. That's a bit weird.
right. Just a moment.
It flickered and then you went off.
Yeah,
There
I've
you
got a
go.
loose connection, I think.
That's okay.
But what was yes, mum. What did I make a decision straight away? I became very decisive. Oh, because sometimes I'm not decisive, and but I became very decisive, and I think part of it was, hopefully my camera will stay on. Part of it was, I just thought, you are 45. You have thought about these things before, but you've always dismissed them. And I realized it's just fear. And I thought, I don't think I can be like Richard Branson or Alan Sugar. I don't know why we have to think that they're both men as well. I thought you had to be part of this special Oprah.
Yeah.
I thought you had to be part of this special club and have a network and know all the old boys things, know all about tax and money and business. And I thought, oh, I don't know any of that. And I just felt really like it wasn't for me. But I thought, I've got to do something. And I started to look into property because I realized people get wealthy through property, sometimes by accident, just through buying a house and living in it. And I thought, well, if people can do it by accident, maybe I can do it deliberately. And it seemed like a more simple kind of business that in my old frame of mind, even I could understand. And so that's what really got me started, that property was the answer. for me.
I love that, because obviously property is, it's a wealth vehicle that's been around for a long time. Everyone talks about it. Most successful people have some sort of property portfolio. So what was the kind of, if you're sitting there in fear, so obviously that for me, I see it all the time. So, a lot of people just say that to me about traveling, because I left Australia and I came to the UK and I've traveled to loads of different countries, and they're like, wow, how do you do that? And I'm like, you book a ticket and you go. But again, it's that simplistic terms, but it is, like you said, fear holds so many back, and especially I find women to hold it back. So how do you start to overcome some of that fear to actually take that first step? What's just a couple of practical things people can do if they're thinking about doing something, they've had that niggling idea, and they're just not sure how to break that fear to get started?
Well, I like to say, unleash your inner badass. I could call it the Badass Manifesto, because many women, especially going into middle age and older, start acting like they're not a badass, and we are. And for those of us who have that spark, to be able to listen to that spark and go through all the fears, because I don't think there are many people who start something new and don't have any fears about it. So how I like to think of it is 3 steps: love, listen, and lead. So love is that often we're very self-critical in the way that we talk to ourselves subconsciously. Those little conversations we have in our mind, if we trip over, spill some milk, those are small things. But if we feel like we've failed at something, then they'll be, I never thought you could do this. Oh, I think you're such a failure. Why would you even try this? Look at what happened in 19 whatever when
Yeah.
Susie so-and-so said this, and wasn't she so right to say that? And most of it's negative. And as humans, we are programmed that way. So there's nothing wrong with you if you do have that negative chat going on. We are designed to avoid pain, seek pleasure, and do so using as little as energy as possible. And for that, we have to be able to spot all these negatives and be able to act on them. But in our modern world, we don't need to focus on the negative as much, because we're not in that constant danger of death. So the first one is to love, and that is to bring that loving conversation into your own self. So the same way that you would treat your daughter with love if she was telling you something, or a niece, or even a puppy, the same way that you would have compassion for their mistakes and know that they were doing the best they could with what they had at the time, is the same way you show compassion to you, and how you behaved in the past was exactly, you did the best you could with what you had at that time, even if you now regard it as a mistake. So the first is love, to bring that love and compassion to yourself, because it's through love and compassion can help you grow. And the reason we know that is when we've got young toddlers, if we want to encourage them to get better at writing or reading or whatever, we don't just say, oh, you're so rubbish, I wouldn't even bother with that if I was you. Or we see them struggling to walk. Oh, just forget it. You've tried at least 3 times. I don't think you should bother with that anymore. No, we say, oh, yeah, keep going. You'll get there. And maybe try a different approach or whatever. But so number 1 is love. Number 2 is listen, because most of us don't actually know what we want, because we never listen to ourselves, because having that relationship with yourself is listening. So we're often, even if we're on a queue in a supermarket or something, we're on our phone, we're on podcasts, we're on social media, we're on, television, we're on something. I'm podcast, audiobooks, driving. We're always got some input. And so for many of us, we just need to take that time to switch off and actually lean into what is inside you. Because when you're a coach as well, and a mentor, and so am I, and when people come to me and say, what should I do? And the only person who knows the answer to that question of what they should do is them. That has to be the truth. And so it's just drawing that out of them is a big part of coaching and mentoring. But we can do that for ourselves just by sitting with ourselves as a best friend and listening to what you want. Over time, the answer will come out. And lead is, once you know what you want, it's going to be scary to move towards it. And so you have to be a leader in your life. And as you do that, you become an inspiration to people around you, your family, your friends, your community. And so love, listen, and lead. That's what I invite people to do.
I really love that. I just kind of tuned in and zoned out with you there. It was lovely. But it is interesting. It's like, I love your love bit, because I wish sometimes you could record your head and just play it back. You know, you listen to all the things you say to yourself and you're like, why? I would never say that to anyone else. It's
Oh.
like, so yeah, I always wish sometimes I could record that little monkey and then just play it back and actually really physically hear it going, you are doing this all the time. So I really love that. And listening, it's funny, I was saying to the girls the other day, one of my friends bought me a book for my 50th. So my 50th has been a massive shake up for me. I'm like, yeah, okay, time to really play big. And but she bought me a book, which I can't show on camera because it's rude, but because it's got swear words all over it, but it's got me into colouring in. And it's really fascinating. So I went and bought 3 other books around colouring in at the moment. And that for me, like a zone out mental shift, like you said, giving myself space where I'm not on technology. I can just get lost in an hour, and the thoughts that come up afterwards, the creativity, it's like you said, you know, lots of people go for nature and go for a walk and things like that, and it's like, yeah, I've found a new secret passion to the side is but I'm finding, like you said, because I can sit there and listen and then be on my laptop, be on the computer, have the TV going in the background, and I just don't ever zone out. And this thing is just like taking me to a whole new world. It's fascinating. So I love that, listening. And then obviously, yeah, leading is doing these sorts of things, being brave, putting yourself out there. And that is not always easy to do as well. So thank you for sharing that. So if you're sitting there with a spark of an idea and listening to this, start with that space, start with that, and ask yourself, like, what do you really want? I love that question, because especially as women, we never really ask ourselves what we want. It's always about generally what other people want. So you know, what is it that you really want to do with your life? So fabulous, Steph. Thank you so much. In relation to kind of so that's kind of takes you to get started, it gets you out there. So your obviously journey has mainly been through property, which is incredible. I know you're obviously doing amazing things now around wealth, but kind of why did you choose property? What was it about property that really took you down the path of your success in such a short space of time?
Yeah, I never thought that property would be the way. But after I had that little spark and I thought maybe you could do something in property, I started attending property networking events. And anybody who's been through this, and I know you have, you're absolutely astounded, because it's like there's this other world where people are doing all these crazy things. And of course, some of them require a lot of money, what seemed like a lot of money, hundreds of thousands of pounds, tens of thousands of pounds to get started. But also, there are people who were just normal like me and working and were getting involved in property using strategy. Well, one of the strategy that I decided to take up was called rent to rent, where instead of buying a property buy to let, where say you needed £50,000 to buy it, and then you could rent it out and maybe make £300 or £400 each month cash flow after your bills. And they were doing this, but they were rent to rent. So they were renting the properties. They weren't putting 50K in. Sometimes they were putting a few £100s in or a few thousand, not very much for a property. And then they were renting the property out again with the owner's permission. It's legal and it's ethical. And I thought, wow, rent to rent, that can't be a thing. And I looked into it and I thought, people are doing this. And I could see the photos of the properties online thinking they're not doing it well. You know, there certainly wasn't, if you want to call it, a woman's touch or that bit of care and attention paid to these properties I saw online. And that gave me confidence, because I thought, wow, if these people can do it, I can do this. And so that's what gave me the confidence to start in rent to rent. So basically started off making money from other people's properties, and each property would make between 500 and over £1,000 every month. So you didn't actually need that many properties to replace, you know, an average UK salary.
Yeah, well, it's only really 2, isn't it, really? What is it, 25,000 roughly an average salary? Yeah, so a couple of properties and you're nearly there. So what's been your biggest, I guess, lesson or learning along the way then, if you're sort of wanting to build your wealth around property? What's been your biggest lesson?
When you first start, you look at the top of the mountain and feel overwhelmed and think, oh, I'm never going to do it. I don't even know about the kit up there. I've heard the oxygen's very difficult day. I don't know if I'll be able to breathe. Don't know if I'm cut out for this. Look at all those people. Look at the gear they've got. Oh my goodness, I can't do that because I haven't got that gear. But actually, everyone who's up that mountain that you're looking at feeling overwhelmed just took the steps. So you can actually take the very next step in front of you and the very next step. And as you go up and look back, you're amazed by how far you've come. But each time you go up, you see different things that you just never saw from the bottom. You have different opportunities. You become a different person. You know yourself, Kylie. I was not a confident person in terms of speaking on video or having other people think that I know something. I was very concerned that people might think that I thought that I knew something or I thought I was better than them, and I was very concerned about people laughing at me. But I got over all of that too, and just got on with it and just decided if people are going to criticize you, whatever you do, why not do what you want to do?
That's so powerful, because it is. People have an opinion no matter what, don't they? That's what I would say. People have an opinion no matter what. So why not do something to better your journey, whether it's, to help your family, whether it's to help your friends, or just to help yourself. I think that, people are either going to, mock you for not staying still or mock you for moving forward. So I really love that. And I think that, that's a common fear around women, I think, as well. We very much are always worried about what our friends are going to say. How's it going to look? I know I had a massive fear when I first left work, because it was like, oh, what are my corporate people going to say? That big sort of shift out of corporate going, she's crazy. How many times people told me to go back and get a job? So I really love that. So you've obviously worked through that now. You obviously way out the other side of success in relation to where, I guess, it probably wasn't even success when you started. You probably didn't even see the vision you have now when you probably first started. Like you said, it was just to get a property or two or three. Whereas now you've built this incredible success. So let's talk about kind of some of that. I think that, we're here to inspire women to kind of go, look, you can take the first steps. There's so many wealth opportunities out there for you. But what does it look like to be slightly on the other side, starting to think about the bigger vision at the moment? What's some of your, I guess, proudest moments, like, in your journey now?
It's honestly, Kylie, it's an ongoing process. From the person I was when I started, and just starting out and creating that property management business, and making money with that and doing a good job and becoming well known in our area. That was phenomenal, and that was with HMO Heaven. And then we started telling other people, oh, do you know what? You can do this. It's not a scam. You can do it really well. And we did that ethical approach to rent with Rent to Rent Success. And we wrote the book. And I know that you're writing a book right now, and it's going to be published very soon. And I'm excited to be part of that, Iconic Wealth for Women. And our book, Rent to Rent Success, had a great impact on us as well, because it spread the word to thousands of people. It's in the top 10 on Amazon for UK property books. And it's right up there with some of the big names that we would all know that are nationwide property training companies. So I think those. But the thing that I love the most, because we started buying properties, that was it. We started buying properties, blocks of flats, commercial properties to convert into flats. And after a while, we said to ourselves, my sister and I, we do it together. We said, well, what are these properties for? Because we're in our 50s. My sister would be like, I'm not in my 50s, because she's turning 50.
I'm in denial too. I'm with your sister. I'm going backwards. I refuse to get any older. It's just a number.
She's turning 50 in June. What we want to do there is to set up an accommodation and education trust, so that all of the properties that we acquire will then become beautiful, affordable homes for people who struggle to get them. And not only will it provide that safe accommodation of a high quality standard, but also the education to say, This is how, if you want to buy your own properties, do your own business, this is how you can create wealth for yourself, starting from exactly where you are. Even if you're on a low or average income, you can become wealthy over time.
Wow, I'm blown away. So is this a separate sort of entity that you're creating, or are you creating this accommodation and education trust? So are you setting it up to help other people now?
Yes. So that
Wow.
when we're no longer here, let's put it in the euphemistic terms,
You're building your legacy, are you, Steph?
that in hundreds of
Yeah.
years' time, those
Yeah.
properties will still be here, and that trust will be getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And the
Wow.
trustees will enact their responsibilities in line with the vision that we have when we set up the trust. So at the moment, we're in the early stages of what will it need to look like in the future, and how can we transition towards that as we age.
I love that. I think that, and that kind of sums up really Iconic Wealth for Women is for me is about getting to that stage where, you've earned some money, you know exactly where you're going, you've built your own sort of, I guess, status in relation to kind of making sure your family are okay, making sure your son's looked after, all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, now how do we do it bigger? How do we do it differently to give back and change society? And I think that, one of the philosophies is very much, I always say, if good women earn good money, they do good things. And that's why we talk about money, because we talk about it to encourage your wealth journey, because along your wealth journey is when you can start to impact others. And it's to stop that thriving, where people are really, I always find I meet women daily who are giving back so much that they're struggling, that they're massively
Yes.
broke. And
Yeah.
I don't agree with that. It's like, how can you help others when your own oxygen mask is not on?
Yes.
So, I love that you're doing that, but also you're not leaving it till retirement to do something either, because that's the other thing. It's either one or the other. It's like either give now and go broke doing it, or wait till you've made it and you're retired to then give back and either give back time or money. So I love that you're combining it as you go and you're building your legacy as you go. So talk to me about kind of what are some of the thought processes that have come up of why are you doing that? Like, if someone's got an idea, so obviously I'm playing with Iconic Wealth at the moment, going, what could we build around that? Could there be some sort of, we're thinking about some sort of investment fund, maybe some fundraising to give back, to kind of have access for women in business to go, how can they access more investment funds that they can't do through the digital banks and things like that? So what kind of sparked you to create that, and where would you get started?
Yeah. So I think having the professional advisors is the place to get started, because trusts are a very complex area of law, and tax is your biggest expense in business. So you suddenly have to become good at tax, and tax in terms of inheritance tax. So tax after you leave something behind. If you leave it in a trust, the tax world is very different. So our first step is to work out what our vision is, which we've worked out at a high level, which I just explained to you. That's going to be an accommodation and education trust for people who struggle to find beautiful, affordable homes like we did. And the second, so that's our vision. And then we need people to help us to do that. So for that, we need tax specialists, we'll need accountants, and we need trust specialists. And you'd be surprised how many, because of the expertise, you do actually need to speak to different people. One person often can't give you the whole picture.
Brilliant. Fantastic. And so how did you kind of come up with the why? What kind of prompted you to create the vision of beautiful, affordable homes? Is it a gap that you've seen in the industry, or, what have you noticed? Why that?
What upsets me is that, well, first of all, my own experience is that when I was younger, and I had my son when I was young, and I remember walking into a letting agent looking what I thought smart, although I suppose that should be irrelevant. But the woman just looked up from behind her counter and said, "We've got nothing for people like you." And I know, and I never forgot that feeling from that day. You know how sometimes you hang on to a negative, but I kind of agreed with her that I was worth the nice properties that she had. And so I just want to be able to do something, because the government has made it very difficult for private landlords to take on what they call social housing, to provide social housing like they used to, for a lot of different reasons, which we won't go into. And also the government's own spending and investment in social housing has gone down. So people at that lower level in the market struggle so much to find some good accommodation, and we just want to have something in the future as well as while we're here now that will be able to help to meet those needs for people.
Brilliant. That's fantastic. And so if you're sort of looking at your kind of wealth journey along the way to get to that stage where you've been able to, now you're starting to think about, you're setting up your legacy, you're starting to think about the future, what's been some of the key kind of turning points along the way for you? So if someone was getting started thinking, wow, I've only got like 50 quid to get started with, or do you know what I mean? I'm like, how can I get started? So it could be that they're from maybe they don't have investment funds yet. You know, what's kind of been the kind of the flow of your wealth, I guess, in relation to kind of where you see your journey?
Absolutely, set that vision, because I've been through periods where I've literally been counting pennies in cash, because it was before the days where, I was going to say before the days where everyone had a bank account, but there was a lot more done in cash back in the day. Not that, you know, the debit card didn't exist, it was cash and checks. So I've actually had times where I've actually been counting the pennies, where I've been significantly in debt. And to get from there to a place where you feel like on solid ground, it's just to actually give yourself the clarity and think, where am I? And go through everything and look at everything, see where you are, see where you want to be. And then this is where the love comes in, because then you look at this situation that you've created for yourself, because we have all created it for ourselves. Even if it's someone else, we have, you know, trusted that person or allowed that person, whatever. So when we take that responsibility on for everything, then it gives us the freedom to be able to say, okay, that was the best I could do at that time. I did my best. I can see why this situation has occurred, and now I'm going to do something different. And you just move gradually towards it. And that might be a combination of speaking to the people who you owe money to. Some of them might accept a reduced amount. And then setting up a plan where you stick to that plan to repay the debts, to save up a safety net. And then the main thing about, and the simplicity of this blows my mind, is to become wealthy, all you need to do is invest. And to invest, it's not like it was in the days of yore when I was young. It's all, we can now invest in a stocks and shares ISA. It's a phenomenal way to start for people. It's a government sponsored, it's tax efficient, and you can start investing in stocks and shares there. And then, you know, for some people it might be property, for some people it might be business, for some people it might be other things. But I think alongside that, for most people, it's great to have a stocks and shares investment as well, and let the compound interest work. It's crazy magic.
Yeah, I think that's one of my biggest things. It's funny because I come out of work learning to trade. So I learned to Forex trade. But it's one of the things that I wish I'd done so much sooner. So, you know, it's one of the things I highly encourage, especially with people with kids. You know, if you have children and you're thinking about going, how are they going to be able to pay for their education? How are they going to be able to maybe get their first property? Is start a small investment fund. I can't, you know, just putting that extra 20, 30 quid a month in that comes out before you even know it's out. And that's the thing. I only really got into them about 3 years ago, and it's crazy. I look back at my journey and think, oh my God, how much further would I be? But again, it's the little things. So like we talk about, you know, can you miss one takeaway and put 20 quid away? You know, it's like, can you do something that just adds to that pot of money every month? And just let it sit and let it stay there. And like you said, let it compound and grow. And obviously, you know, if you're sort of looking at something like that. So I learned this through Anne Wilson from the Wealth Chef. So that's how I got started with them, because she used to talk about index trackers all the time. And I was like, what are these bloody index tracker things, you know? So if you've got any tips, like where would you get started investing like that? What sort of things should they look for? Obviously, we don't give advice on here. So, guys, if you're listening in, just a bit of a disclaimer. I should have a disclaimer on this somewhere, really. This is not investment advice. No. This is our own experiences and our own education. You obviously need to go and do your own education as well. But yeah, kind of what prompted you to get started in the investment, and what steps would you take?
Yeah, so I think for us here in the UK, a stocks and shares ISA is a great way to start. You can start them. There are various different online platforms where you can start them. It's easier than opening a bank account. I personally have used Vanguard. I get nothing extra for saying that. It's been proved very simple, but there are lots of other options. And within Kylie's Iconic Wealth for Women, you can find out more about what the other options are. But you go in there and you save money every month, even if it's only £1 to start off with. It gets you into that. And as you see your money building, you want to invest more and more and more. And honest to goodness, you do not miss the money. If your mortgage or your rent went up, you would just pay that amount and you wouldn't be thinking about that money. And it's the same when you invest. You're actually investing in your future. And let me tell you something fun, Kylie. I've always been quite sensible. I never thought of myself as a car person. I actually drive a Nissan Juke at the moment, which I chose because it's sort of middle sized. I can pay it all off in one go. And recently, we decided, both of us, to get new cars. My sister had a car that she'd owned for 17 years, 17, a Mercedes. And a Mercedes CLK, but it looked like it was 17 years old. And anyway, she's now got a new car, a Tesla Model S, beautiful car, red with cream interiors. And I'm just in the process of buying a Porsche. And
nice.
Yeah. And they're both,
I was hoping you were going to come out with something classic.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I was kind of limited because we're buying electric cars because it's very tax efficient through the business to do that. And you wouldn't believe how much more tax efficient, like tens of thousands of pounds compared with if we buy a petrol car in our own name. Yeah, so it's so different. You know, your identity is constantly expanding as you're on this wealth creation journey. As you see yourself, I never saw myself in that way as somebody who, I know it sounds so silly, as somebody who drives a sports car, or specifically a Porsche.
Isn't that amazing though? And I think that's the thing as well. I think we need to celebrate, like you said, as women, quite often we don't celebrate our successes. It's like you said, it takes a lot for you to say that, doesn't it? That you're actually now buying a Porsche, which I think is amazing. But how many times do we not celebrate our success either? So we don't share it sometimes. So I think it's fabulous that, and I love that she's gone for the Tesla. I am in the middle of looking at an upgrade. It's funny because when I moved to Milton Keynes, I went straight into lockdown, didn't I? So I'd obviously been traveling for 6 months. I had sold my place in London and then had to move here. And of course, I hadn't rented before. I just wanted something temporary, didn't I, to decide where I was going to live permanently. And of course, I'd never rented. So I had to put down 10 grand's worth of rent because I had no backup, because I'd only been in my business a couple of years. I had no they were like, you've got no security. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't even think about it. So, of course, I literally, at the time, I'd come back traveling for 6 months. I had £1 grand left in my account afterwards and went, I need a car. So I literally bought my car for £1,000. It's a little Nissan as well. It's a Vauxhall, sorry. And it's the most reliable car I think I've ever had. So I keep looking to upgrade at the moment, and I go, but it's so reliable, the poor little thing. But I'm definitely at that. I need a luxury now. I'm like, okay, you've done your job. You got me through when I first moved to Milton Keynes. But it's funny when you have those little stories and anecdotes of like where, I just never thought about renting because I hadn't rented for 5 years because I had my own house. But I wanted something temporary. Then we got into lockdown and got stuck for nearly 3 years. So I was like, okay, I'm with this car still. Why has it hung around? So I love that. But I think that there's a couple of things there. So I got started with Hargreaves and Lounsden. So if anyone knows those guys, again, very simple to set up. So I love that there's different things. And yeah, we are looking at creating a basic wealth course in the actual community so that we can start to talk about these sorts of things and what type of investments we're doing.
Yeah.
I love that now you're having some fun with it as well, Steph, because I think that you've grown so much so fast over the last 4 or 5 years. I think it's wonderful you're acknowledging some of your own success and actually now in that position. I know it's a tax benefit, but it's also, I think, a self-worth benefit. You know yourself now. And I think that's where I've watched you change so much. You know, you've blossomed through your journey. And I know you're making a massive impact on others. It's incredible what you're doing to help others. And like we always used to say, it's the ripple effect, isn't it? It's that, you know, you change one person's life along the way and you know you're doing really well. And, you know, you've changed thousands of people's lives now. So if you could share kind of one tip around building your wealth, what would it be?
It would be believe, because we've probably said this a few times, but we hold ourselves back. It's not that other people hold us back. It's our beliefs define who we become. If we believe that, you know, we'd be lucky to own a house, then we feel lucky when we own a house. And maybe that's okay. That's okay. Because one point I haven't made during this is your truth is your truth. When you listen to yourself and have that conversation with yourself, you might find you're absolutely contented with where you are and that you love your life exactly as it is. And that's fine. And you don't want anything more. Or you may decide you love your life as it is, but you also want more. And both are fine. So my wealth building tip would be, believe that what you want is possible for you.
Brilliant. I love that. And I think that's really nice to acknowledge as well, because especially in my online business space, we see so much where women are, I have to do 6 figures, I have to do 7 figures, I have to build this $1 million business. It's like, do you? Like, it's not right for everyone. And I think it's okay, like you said, to enjoy your journey, be on your own path. So I really, really love that. Steph, this has been fascinating. I have to ask you one more thing. We always ask, as a bit of fun on this podcast, is what's something we don't know about you or something a bit unique? And you love roller disco. Incredible. How did you get into going to roller discos? They seem such 80s for me. I'm like, what on earth is roller? So do you do that now? Like, do you have a roller disco you go to?
Yeah, well, I first started as a teenager in the 1980s, and it was such fun, and the music they played was brilliant as well, and we used to go there with friends, so it just brings back such great memories. And we have a roller disco. I live in Wales, but it's in Bristol, which is about an hour away. And so so I go over there from time to time and just relive those moments.
I love
Wheels.
it though, because that's the other thing, isn't it? Sometimes we can get all so serious about business, and we hope that, you know, we hope by listening to this journey today, you've not only picked up some tips, but, you know, you've kind of been inspired. I think, you know, for me, Iconic Wealth for Women is all about starting conversations. It's being in a safe space, it's being a safe environment where you can start these conversations. If you're interested and you want to find out more, then you've got these incredible experts around us to be able to do that. It's like a safe space to do that. But also it's about having some fun along the way. It is about, you know, when women get together, you know, when we do things and live life, wealth is about enjoying your life at the time. So I love that. When I saw that, I was just like, I have to ask Steph about roller disco. I'm like, it's crazy. I thought I was mad getting into colouring in, but yeah, I really, really love that. So Steph, as usual, it's been a pleasure. You're an incredible inspiration to so many women around the globe, and other, obviously not just women, but definitely for me, you've been one of my inspirations. Watching you change and grow over the last few years has just been amazing. So what's the best way for people to get in touch with you? Obviously there's going to be links around this podcast, but share where you mainly hang out, and is there anything that you want to share?
Well, I just want to say thanks to you, Kylie. I love what you're doing with Iconic Wealth for Women. And we didn't touch on it in this podcast today, but you were really fundamental in us moving and starting to teach what we learned in Rent to Rent in the Rent to Rent Success Kickstarter program. And you helped us go from having that idea to having an online program and being able to tell people about it and to be able to work with people. So I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you. I remember your little idea when you first started. It's like, can I really do this? And that's why it's always a pleasure to watch, because it's like, that was just a spark, and it's only
Yes.
been a small part of your journey now. Now you've just gone on and done massive things. But I think it's really interesting. Again, it's that belief, isn't it? It's that first belief. Can I really teach this? Can I really show this? And
Yeah.
I hear that a lot. I'm not the expert. And it's
Yes.
like, you don't need to be the expert. You need to just be able to help people take those steps to get them to where they want to go. So I really love that, because you trusted me too. You were one of my first kind of done with your clients, and it
Oh
was
my
exciting times. And and look at where you are now.
If you look back though, Kylie, that belief was so shaky, but yeah, it was enough. I was so tentative at first moving forward, and that belief was so shaky. So just saying that to anyone listening who wants to believe, yes, I can be wealthy, I can build my wealth, I can grow my wealth, but your belief feels a bit shaky. Start off with that shaky belief, and it will strengthen up as you move forward. But yeah, you can find me at renttoRentSuccess.com/iconic. And if you go there, you'll be able to get a free copy of our book called Rent to Rent Success. And also you can find me at blowupyourlife.com, where we help women over 40 to blow up their lives and achieve the lives exactly that they want.
I love that, because, for me, it's empowering, especially women over 40. Like, we are one of the biggest people that are starting businesses, but have a guide like Steph. I wish, in a way, I'd had a guide like Steph when I first got started, because I think that, like you said, sometimes you can't see what's in you until someone else does. So, working with people like Stephanie, she will spot those things that you may be just hiding away and bring them out into a much bigger way. So thank you so much. Please do go and obviously download your book. Read it. Even if you're not getting into property, go and read it. There are definitely ideas and inspiration in there that you'll pick up anyway, but it might just spark that other wealth journey down in towards property. So please do that. There's obviously links around this podcast. Come back, hang out with women like this, because again, one of the biggest things that you can do to literally turn your wealth journey around, or develop whatever you want to do, or even just spark something new, is to be around incredible women like this. So thank you for being here, Steph. I am loving hosting this podcast. And like you said, if you haven't seen the book yet, I'm not sure if this is out before or after the book. So please do keep an eye out for the Iconic Wealth for Women book. People like Stephanie have put their time in, effort in, and shared some of their knowledge and stories. But also some practical tips to get you started no matter where you are. So please do keep an eye out for the book as well. And it's been a pleasure, Stephanie. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Kylie.
Bye.
Bye.